Hey guys, how's it going? Don Russo here. Hope you're doing well. I am here. We're doing a series of Facebook Live lessons every day, Monday through Saturday. So make sure you tune in and check them out. My day is Tuesday, so every Tuesday at noon I'm going to come on and do a guitar lesson for you guys. On Mondays we have Colin doing drums, and then tomorrow is Tony doing drums. And then on Thursday, Drew's going to be doing a guitar lesson. Friday we have Madeline doing voice, and then Nick we have doing piano on Saturday. So just tune in every day at noon and you'll get a free lesson. And I'm going to be talking about a subject today called chord scales. Okay. So by the way, if you have any questions or anything, I'm going to kind of do a brief overview, so it's going to be moved kind of quick. Okay. This is definitely not a beginner lesson, but anyone can learn this and use it at any level. It does take a little bit of practice, and like I said, if you have any questions, just ask me at the end, just comment. Alright, so we're going to talk about chord scales. I'm going to start off with pentatonic scale, okay? So if you know your 5 box of the pentatonic scale, box 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you know those 5 boxes, you're already in an advantage. Okay, so the first type of chord scales I like to use are pentatonic chord scales. And what I do is I basically take the highest 4 notes in each pattern. So this will be pattern 1, pattern 2, 3, 4, and pattern 5. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these top 4 notes right here, these 4 notes here, and then pattern 2, pattern 3, pattern 4, and then pattern 5. And I'm just making these little chord shapes based off of the pentatonic scales. Now, I'm not going to focus on those too hard today, but that's how I generally get started, is with the pentatonic scales. I'm going to focus on ones that I use for minor and major chords, okay? So more diatonic scales. So I'm going to start with minor first, okay? I'm going to start with A minor. And so what I do first is I play an A minor scale on the high E string. Cool? And if you don't know an A minor scale, it's a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. And for this purpose, I'm going to skip the 6th note, okay? And I'll tell you why in a bit. I like to create chord scales that are going to be useful for either an Aeolian or a Dorian minor. If you don't understand that, basically an Aeolian minor has a flat 6 in it, and a Dorian minor has a natural 6, okay? So because they both have different 6s, I like to skip the 6 personally and just not even use it. Unless I'm doing Dorian, then sometimes I'll definitely will use a 6 a lot. But for this purpose, I'm not going to play a 6. That way, these chord scales can work for either your 1 chord, or your minor 1 or your minor 4 chord, or if you're in a major key, it would be your 2 and 6 chords. But so here we go. Check it out. I'm going to try to make this. I'm going to try to simplify it for you a little bit. So for each of these notes, I'm going to skip the 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a chord shape for each of those. Okay, so the first chord shape I use is just straight across the 5th fret right here for A minor. This will be a dominant 7, a flat 3rd, a 5, and a root. Just the 5th fret straight across. Okay, and then for my 2, what I use, I just add my pinky like that. And then for the flat 3rd, here's the shape I use. It's 7, 7, 8, 8 with the frets. And the notes or the chord degrees would be root 4, 7, flat 3. So I got. And then for the 5th, I use the same shape that I use for the 4th. I use the same shape that I use for the flat 3rd. So these are the same exact shapes. So cool. And then for the 5th, notes will be C, G, B, E, and the chord degrees will be flat 3, flat 7, 9, 5. So I got this shape for my root, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to skip the 6 for now and go over to my 7. Now my 7 is going to be the same shape as I used for my 3 and 4. This is like the magic shape, by the way. If you ever want to, like, you know, play a chord shape and, you know, 9 times out of 10 be right, just play this one here. So that's a 7 on top. I've got the frets are 14, 14, 15, 15. And it's going to be 5 root, 4, 7, or note-wise, E, A, D, G. So I got root, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 7, and then I'm back home to my root. Cool, so what I do is I created a scale on top and using those chord shapes to kind of flesh them out and make them sound a little bit better. So what I'm going to do now is kind of like just demonstrate how I can use these for you, okay? So what I'm going to do is just kind of like play a little funky groove in A minor and just improvise around those shapes. Here we go, check it out. Good, right? And all I'm doing is just jamming with those shapes. You know, it's basically like soloing over a scale, except now I'm using chord shapes, okay? And one of the cool things about that is you can just create a melody on that top line. So I might do something like this. So right? And all I do is add the chord shape that goes with it, right? Just check it out. So now that you've got that for A minor, you can do the same thing for D minor, right? So you go to D, check it out right here. And you do the same thing, same shapes. Root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, root. Woo, that's way up there. Get my money's worth out of this guitar. Root, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, root. Backwards, 7, 5, 4, 3. Make sure you can always go behind your root note as well. Good. All right. So now I've got my shapes for D minor and my shapes for A minor. So what I can do is I can jam back and forth between D minor and A minor. So let's just say I had a jam going like this, like an A minor thing. To D minor. Back and forth like that. Okay, check it out. Watch this. Here we go. A minor, D minor, A minor, D minor. So what I'm doing is I'm just going back and forth between those two shapes, okay? How do you practice this? That's a great question. First of all, get each of the shapes down where you memorize them cold. Right, you just know them like the back of your hands. And then what I do to practice is I would go like this. I would go A minor, and then the closest shape to D minor, and then A minor, and then the closest shape to D minor, which in this case happens to be the same shape. Then A minor, D minor, A minor, D minor. Whoops. So all I'm doing is just kind of like basically practicing shifting gears between A minor and D minor, A minor and D minor, moving up and then back down the neck like this, like A minor, D minor, A minor, D minor, A minor, D minor, A minor, D minor. And just really going back and forth, moving up and down the neck, going to the next closest shape you can go to. That's a great way to practice it, okay? Now, like I said, this is a brief overview. I know it's a lot to take in, so if you have questions, ask at the end. And then, of course, if you shameless plug, if you need lessons, I highly recommend it. As you can get a lot more done with some one-on-one attention. All right, so here we go. These minor shapes can also be used for their relative major shapes. Okay, so what I mean is, like, and a lot of you know this already, every minor and major have a relative to each other. So, for example, C major is relative to A minor, right? And F major is relative to D minor. So you can use the A minor shapes for C major. You can use the D minor shapes for F major. So let's take those A minor shapes like this. These. Cool. So this shape here over A minor is going to be a 7 flat 3 5 9, but over a C major it's 5 root 3 major 7. So it's pretty cool. It works for either, right? So let's just say I was doing like a C major thing like this. So that, if I was just jamming over C major, I could use those same shapes. So you see that it works either way. It doesn't really matter whether I do A minor or C major. Those chord shapes are going to sound pretty awesome with either one. Okay. So now you can mix and match. So let's just say I was doing something like this, like a C major. D minor type thing. Now I can use, for C major, I'll use the A minor shapes. For D minor, I'll use the D minor shapes. Here we go, check it out. Idea. I'm just basically using the A minor shape to the D minor shape, just kind of back and forth between the two. Now from there, it's like there's like an endless world of things you can do. This is just only major and minor chords, right? You can take you can do like a dominant 7 chord scale. You could do it with altered dominant. I mean, you could do it with literally like anything. I know I'm maybe talking over some of your heads right now. The idea is to take a scale and to create chords that go with that scale. Now, a couple more little tidbits just before I leave you, and then I'll take some questions, okay? What do you do about in-between notes? Like if I want to do something like this. Like add a little chromatic note. That's a great question, okay? So here's how I tackle that. So if I'm going from this shape here to this shape here, there is a note in between. So I could go... Sorry, my cat's peeking through the blinds over here. Hey, Max! I'll introduce you to him sometime. So check it out, this little thing here. In A minor, the way I do it is, whatever chord shape I'm approaching, if I'm moving up, I move up into that chord shape, or if I'm moving down, I move down into that chord shape. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So if I'm going from here to here, I'm always going to lead in with the shape that I'm going to. So check it out. I'll half step into that shape. And if I was going the other way, I would half step back down in that shape. Feel me? Let's check it out. Another example. Let's say I was going from this shape to this shape. I'm going to lead into this shape by using that shape. And the other way, so check it out. If I was going this way, So always lead into the shape always use the shape that you're leading into, essentially, if you're doing like chromatic stuff, okay? One more thing, and then we'll wrap up for the day. These shapes are not the end all be all. These are just some, like, I call them pet shapes. I got that term from Jim Mings. Jim, hey, if you're out there. It's just like I have some pet shapes that I like. You know, Robert Newton actually showed me some of these shapes, and then I've kind of adopted some of my own. But you can create some of your own. These shapes are just a launching pad, right? So if I'm doing like a C major, I can use this. I know this is 5 root 3 6, so I can add a major 7 here, or 4 here, 5, 9. I can manipulate these shapes any way I want. So I can manipulate that shape any way I want to, right? And if I go to D minor, I can just take this shape here. I know this is for D minor, this is 7, 3, 5 root. And I happen to know this is a D Dorian minor, which is a 2 chord. I know I'm throwing a lot of info here. So I could do like, I can manipulate this as long as I'm playing pretty much any note in the key of C. So I can take this shape and I can do this. So anything I want to do in there, I have a lot of fun with that. Cool. All right. So here's what I want you to take away from today. Number 1, chord scales. What do? It's not as complicated as it sounds. You take a scale, you play it on one string. I use my lead tone string as high E today. You can make it B or G. And then you flesh some chords underneath it, okay? And then you learn those chord shapes and you master those so that you can use them over any specific chord type. You can do it for major, minor, dominant. You can use it for half diminished. You can do it for minor 6s if you want to. Altered dominance, whatever you want. You can create chord scales for any chord type to use. And you want to be able to switch gears, go from chord to chord to chord to chord to chord. Also, if you need to use chromaticism in your chord scales, always use the shape that you're leading to. Okay. And finally, if you want to make it a little spice it up a bit, you need to learn your chord shapes so that you know exactly what chord degree is inside of each one of them, so you can manipulate them any way you want to. And that wraps our lesson for today. So. How would over there, Stan? Cool.